You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's been a long week. We've all struggled through it together, and now we are about to talk about those who did not make it through A-OK. And these would be a lot of the other legacy media outlets out there who promised back in 2020 that the age of kind of conservative misinformation and disinformation, it was over, that they were victorious. And it turns out, no, in fact, they were not. One of these, Media Matters, is in fact heading towards bankruptcy. Now, Media Matters is a left-wing funded group by George Soros and many other individuals on the far left who have written a lot of very strange articles over the year complaining that conservatives exist. And I have had the distinct pleasure of being the subject of one of their articles. At least, I think. I haven't looked in a while here. There was a time right after the Indianapolis public school drama that I had the pleasure of being involved with, that Fox News invited me on to talk about a daycare chain that was bringing up really inappropriate sexual things to the kids in the daycare. And after talking about it, Media Matters wrote how bigoted it was, that I would dare question transgender stuff being taught in preschool daycares. So now they are not doing so hot. I believe the industry term is very out of dough. Here's the president of Media Matters on MSNBC just about an hour and a half ago.
Where exactly are we, Angelo, right now?
I mean, we're at the beginning stages of a massive transformation and a closure of and a reduction in civic spaces. Whether or not Trump and Carr, who's the FCC chairman, and the rest of Project 2025's acolytes will be able to execute and fully implement that change is up to.
Did you catch the Project 2025 whining there? That'll be important here in a second.
All of us. But we are at the beginning of that, and there are plenty of examples, one after the other, of, as Commissioner Gomez described it, cowardly capitulation. And, that trend isn't going away. It's only increasing. And on the flip side of that, capitulation has been an increase in threats, not just from Commissioner Carr, but elsewhere, to leverage the power of government to, pressure business entities into caving or giving them what they want. I'll give one.
So here we go. We're going to go back. All of this apparently has to do with Trump not liking people saying mean things about him, which is interesting because no one's ever done that before. After all, the media coverage of Donald Trump has been glowing sunshine and unicorn butts for the last decade and a half. Whenever Donald Trump, and by the way, not just in overt media, like in coverage, but also what would be called the secondary media, like Getty Images, for example, which is where all of the photographers put their very fancy photos that you see used for thumbnails in various media. Trying to find a good photo of the president on one of those platforms is nigh impossible. The entire media ecosystem is built on criticizing Trump, which again, fine. If that's what you want to do, you are free to do so. As a citizen of the United States, you have free speech. But because Media Matters is not making tons of money anymore, coincidentally at the same time that the USAID funding is a little drier than it used to be, well, you just blame it on a Nazi fascist takeover of the media or whatever, and then clutch your pearls until commercial break.
Example, before I turn it over to Cornell, the FTC recently approved a merger between two of the largest media buyers. And one of the conditions of that approval was that the media buyers would no longer remove ads or place advertisements based off of political or ideological considerations.
No, the horror. You mean that some network on FCC regulated airwaves, which require a kind of political neutrality, you mean they're going to require those companies to abide by that not only during their program, but their advertisements? So that if we pull examples from the last election, so that if Tim Walz or Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or J.D. Vance wanted to put an ad up on the air, that they would do so and not get involved politically? Oh, the horror. Say it ain't so.
I mean, that's an outrageous action for them to do. Total.
I know, outrageous. I can't believe it. They're letting people from all sides of the political aisle talk. Those cretins, those miscreants Oh, the horror.
Unprecedented, but they made
Unprecedented. I've never seen precedents quite like this.
it clear that if they wanted that deal to go through, no more saying you won't advertise on certain extremist kind of content.
Ah, yes, a certain kind of extremist content. By the way, if you go for Media Matters extremist kind of content based on their own coverage, that includes things like Catholic church and hospital commercials. Oh, no, not Catholics. Ooh. Oh, not school choice. Oh, not advertising on merit instead of skin color. Oh, the horror, the shame, the inhumanity, the adjectives. I'm loving it. The tears can continue to flow, and not just with those who are shutting their doors, because we talked about yesterday E! Over from NBC Universal, which none of you have ever heard of. That, of course, going under. The cable ratings have been released, and it's just as abysmal as could possibly be for those networks on the left. For example, for primetime, total viewership from the week of July the 14th showed that Fox News scored in total viewership about 2.38 million viewers. MSNBC during primetime, 923,000, otherwise known as ouch. CNN, 498,000. That is abysmal. Now, during prime time, those viewers, that means that during the week of July the 14th, this show on YouTube alone, if we don't count the Nielsen ratings for radio, we don't count the ComScore ratings, we don't factor in TV, if we don't factor in the X and the Rumble crews and the podcast downloads, our YouTube channel alone on the week of July 14th scored better ratings during prime time than CNN. A multi-$100 million operation. Oh, dear sweet Lord in heaven, how embarrassing. Now, the total day ratings are even more brutal when you look at the 25 to 54 demo, which is what any Hollywood producer would sell their soul to captivate. This is something that the cable news networks are really, really struggling on. Really, because again, people aged 25 to 54 don't usually come home, grab the old remote, and turn on some Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. The only places that right now millennials and the last of Generation X are viewing that kind of content is at airports, coffee shops, and places that they are forced to be where there's a TV on the wall. For that section, it's Fox News at 171,000, CNN at 57,000, and MSNBC at 54,000, which is, again, brutal, abysmal ratings. I mean, that's atrocious. Now, when you move that over to the reason that the media are trying to stuff behind this, they all will go back to the CBS Stephen Colbert firing in advance. So as a reminder, Stephen Colbert, whose show cost CBS $100 million a year to produce, only made CBS $60 million in return. Stephen Colbert every year was losing the network an average of $41 million, which is, again, not exactly a small number, and a really, really embarrassing destruction of the David Letterman brand. But that all said, he's still very angry, and now he's trying to get fired because the media narrative is that this merger between CBS and Skydance, the one that Media Matters was just crying about a few seconds ago, that, oh, this is some kind of a deal to cancel Colbert. Mwah, ha, ha, ha. Only Colbert's still on the air for another 10 months. As far as political messaging is concerned, South Park just lit Trump up by saying that he had very small manhood, which could talk, which is an interesting fairy tale to be sure, and that Trump regularly sleeps with Satan. And the Trump administration did nothing about that whatsoever. But Colbert being fired 10 months from now, oh yeah, that's it. Here's Colbert trying to, move that up a little bit here, criticizing his own network on the show. Bold move.
Wow, hold on. Plus they're paying his legal fees? 16 plus 20, 30. That means by bending the knee, they lost like $40 million this year. They better watch out. They better watch out. They might get canceled.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if CBS loses $40 million every year for the recent memory of all of us, yeah, that might be a little bit rough. I sure hope that the networking and broadcasting over the future doesn't respond to very poor decisions that Colbert made openly. All right, radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial. You don't get to hear Rosie O'Donnell. I know, it must break your heart. We'll be back in a second. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So there are a few stars out there. Well, I don't know if you'd call her a star. She's certainly not the only one, though. Rosie O'Donnell from her weird perch in Ireland, who no longer wants her, is yelling that this is clear-cut proof. I mean, the evidences of the evidences. All of these media empires collapsing. Stephen Colbert, someday fired. Oh, she's mad about it. And if there's one thing that Rosie O'Donnell is really good at, other than grossing you out on camera, it's yelling about the ultimate Nazi conspiracy.
I'm very happy that we get another 9 months of Stephen Colbert. And shame on Paramount. And shame on all of the corporate media companies who are bowing to him and kissing his ring and sucking his you-know-what. Because this is the worst human that's ever been in the office. Bar none.
I mean, Woodrow Wilson airing Birth of a Nation, FDR sending people to actual internment camps, and not like the 2 weak ones where they have violated a law, but, for being Japanese. I mean, there are quite a few individuals that are a little bit rough, but anyway, Rosie O'Donnell, great historian. Trump, worst guy ever. Probably Hitler by night. Guy puts on a fake mustache, pencil one before he goes to sleep.
Bar none.
Bar none.
In America, you deserve better.
Which is why she ran off to Ireland. It has been a lot better here since she left, to be fair. So that stuff aside, there is one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys that is just piece de résistance fantastique. This would be Justice Kagan over from the Supreme Court. So Justice Kagan is the least offensive of the 3 liberal justices. By this, I mean Kagan is literate. Now, some of the arguments she makes are really spurious and aren't based on a lot, but in some cases, I see her train of thought. It's a little slower than some of the other trains, but she does actually make rational cases for some constitutional interpretations that are more liberal. And as you will recall, in the last administration, that people like Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and the like were receiving death threats, protests outside of their house, and there was all of this violence that was being aimed at the Supreme Court and encouraged by members of the squad, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But Kagan, finally, after years of violent threats towards some members of the Supreme Court, she now has decided it is the time to condemn it.
I mean, what matters is the challenge we face now, and I do think that there is a challenge and that there are concerns now. I thought that Chief Judge Murguia did a very good job the other day when she talked about the state of the circuit, also sort of talking about the state of the judiciary and challenges to an independent judiciary. And I would say that they're on a number of different in a number of different areas. They're all connected with each other. I mean, one is what Chief Judge Murguia talked about is the threats to personal safety.
Threats to personal safety? Oh, you mean because some people in the Trump administration said they don't like judges operating outside of their Article 2 authority in the Constitution. Oh, you don't mean like when Kavanaugh and Barrett received genuine, actual threats and people showing up outside their homes with weapons.
And the person, these.
You can hear her trying to fight over whether she wants to mention it in her head right there. That's what the wheels turning are currently. That's what that mumbling is.
Endangerment of judges. And that's something that my court dealt with actually a few years ago when Dobbs came down.
But she didn't say anything at that time. Curious. Now all of a sudden it's time to say it. Now all of a sudden it's safe. Well, how'd he do? I am truly shocked at how quickly that turned around. We'll let Elaine here finish here.
When some of my colleagues on the majority side were confronted with protests outside their houses, including houses with children in them, and a gunman appeared,
like out of the blue, like the genie,
at one of my colleagues' houses, and that is scary stuff. And
she didn't say anything at the time, but that's scary stuff.
And I think now there are a number of judges, sort of all up and down.
Oh, now we're going to get to it. Here's why she's really concerned.
Judicial hierarchy that are being confronted with the same and
not with the same. There are not people showing up with guns outside federal judges' homes. Hasn't happened once. Not yet, thank God.
You know, when it's not the Supreme Court, probably with fewer resources of dealing with that and of ensuring personal safety, and it remains really scary stuff. And
oh, I mean, I do agree, you know, but we'll be back in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
So, in the midst of Justice Elena Kagan from the Supreme Court deciding all of a sudden that, yeah, violence against judges, very, very bad, guys, the Democrats have not really received such information over in the House. And we really are getting closer and closer to the midterms. Further, we're almost to the point where we are a year after the last presidential election. The Democrats still have no leadership at all. It is astounding. I don't think we've ever seen one of the two political parties which are active as the main bifurcation of U.S. politics go this long without some kind of leadership or direction. No one's been lost this long in the wilderness since the Israelites were trying to make it from Israel to Judea. So, you know, I mean, it's a little awkward here at the present moment in time, watching the House Democrats not be united by Hakeem Jeffries doing an impression of William Shatner, but of Jasmine Crockett and Beto O'Rourke back from Texas, you know. He hasn't won an election. He's ready to rally the troops. They don't even have active elected officials who are rallying the Democrats at this point. Chuck Schumer is nowhere to be seen. Hakeem Jeffries is mumbling into his chest. Ken Martin is emasculated, leading a decrepit DNC. The teachers' unions heads don't have any power. Of course, that didn't stop Randy Weingarten from, you know,
that education.
We'll get there. But you've got all these Democrats that don't have any leadership. So Beto, he's ready, man. After Ted Cruz slapped him across the chops multiple times, he's here to party.
Join me and Jasmine Crockett, Greg Casar, Joaquin Castro, James Tallarico, Gina Hinojosa, Jean Wu, and thousands more who are going to rally for our democracy and fight back against redistricting at the Delco Center Friday at 6:30. All are welcomed. We'll see you soon.
Wow, slash my wrists. That sounds fantastic. I sure do love Beto O'Rourke and Jean Wu and Jasmine Crockett and the other people who I've never heard of before at meeting at the local activity center. Man, funding must be tight. I got to tell you, producer Nick, have you ever heard of a major political rally like this Saturday at Simeon Senior Center? In the rec room behind the old organ they donated in 54. Here, Kamala Harris. Inspiring.
That whole time I was hearing him list off those names, I legitimately was thinking he was making them up. They were so absurd with like who's who, guess who characters.
It's really that bad. It really is. And by the way, the reason that Democrats haven't found any kind of concerted, actionable leadership is because every little squad member is out doing their own PR circuit. So Ayanna Pressley has decided that right now, when Harmeet Dillon, who, by the way, if you really do want to know, the Attorney General office staffer, the DOJ member who is delivering the most for Americans without any exceptions here, Harmeet Dillon is just delivering victory after victory. If you do, by the way, if you want some advice here, you need to do two things. First of all, you need to go over to the Daily Signal's YouTube page, youtube.com/Daily Signal. You need to subscribe so you catch our stuff all the time. After that, you need to go to x.com and you need to go to Harmeet Dillon's Twitter. Yes, the incredibly fantastic head of civil rights for the Justice Department, who essentially takes her time out currently listening to all of these various leads on cities that are violating the civil rights laws by participating in discriminatory actions based on color, based on sex, based on your preferred group to sleep with, whatever that may be, based on religion. And essentially she quote tweets it with, So, for example, earlier this afternoon, There was a situation developing where Boston is now reporting, Mayor Wu has said, a housing plan that ranks neighborhoods by race, language, and income. So if you are white or appear white and you speak English, your housing area is considered lower priority. That's illegal. And so Harmeet Dillon just quote tweets, I love it. Fantastic. So how are House Democrats combating what, again, many Americans have wanted for a very long time on this? Ayanna Pressley has decided to take to the podium and say some very important things like DEI is America. All right.
The work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is essential to leaving the world a better place than we found it. Today, we aren't only fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are fighting for dignity.
Yes, dignity. Nothing says dignity like having to artificially prop up racial groups.
For justice, for humanity, for progress.
For adjectives, for nouns, adverbs.
For every single person who calls this country home, and our fight is far from finished.
For every person who calls this country home, we believe in you, unless you are on this unapproved list of colors and genders and religions. Thank you. Representative Latifah Simon, who you've never heard of before, again, doesn't matter. She also took to the stand to fight for some other truly important things.
But the Republican budget bill will put Planned Parenthood centers like ours across the country at risk.
At risk? Oh no, they're going to put them at risk. At risk of what?
100 of the 600 Planned Parenthood clinics across the country may close.
Oh no! Oh no, where are they going to go to kill the kids? Man, horrible. Hey, let's see if you guys can figure out. What's the predominant ethnicity in many of those 600 Planned Parenthood locations? Anyone out there? Producer Nick, do you happen to know?
Hey, they also hand out bags of condoms in old Kroger grocery bags.
I want you, seriously, I want you to take a guess here. Planned Parenthood. Most of the Planned Parenthoods in this country are in what predominant neighborhoods?
You wouldn't suggest minorities, would you?
Survey says that's in fact correct. So, I mean, again, I'm confused as to why individuals in Congress who claim to support minority rights are also trying to keep the centers killing the most minority children from being born. Again, a bold strategy. Equity, yes, of course. Equity, thank you.
And women will die.
I mean, not as many as they were when the Planned Parenthoods were killing them in the womb, you know. Again, and you don't have to take this from me. Ask women who have gone to Planned Parenthood for other kinds of procedures how they were treated. The answer is like cattle.
Planned Parenthood closures will disproportionately impact Black and brown mothers.
True, more of their kids will be born.
Who already have a maternal mortality rate more than 3 times as their white counterparts.
We actually looked at the data on this. There is nothing that suggests that your proximity to a Planned Parenthood decreases mortality in the maternity ward. There's nothing not at all. I'm just making stuff up at this point. Now, right before we send the radio folks over to the commercial break, producer Nick, go ahead. What do you got?
Are Planned Parenthoods now considered emergency medicine centers of some kind?
I mean, if you go there and you beg them to kill your child, they'll definitely take you up on it.
It's very much an emergency to them.
We've definitely gathered that. Radio crew will send you over to commercial. See you back here in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, I don't want to leave out Jasmine Crockett herself. I know Beto was eager to, see her over at the local activity center and skateboard emporium, but Crockett is very upset because Texas is redistricting and the Democrats are mad. They're crying gerrymandering. And is it gerrymandering? Yeah, every state does gerrymandering, every one of them. Yeah, state legislatures decide congressional districts. You don't like it? Put other people in the districts. I don't know what to tell you, but Crockett, she's very mad. And so she has decided that it's terrible that she might not be able to convince enough people to vote for her. lack of self-awareness is kind of stunning. Here you go.
Texas is a majority minority state, and they don't feel comfortable having to go and present their very much racist policies, the policies that people like the Proud Boys are excited about, the people like the Oath Keepers, people like, we saw on January 6th, those guys. So that's what they're going to do. They are going to minimize people of color's voices, and they truly believe that by pushing their white supremacy agenda, they will be able to then secure more Republican seats. I've got news for them. I believe in the people of Texas, and I believe that this may backfire in a really unprecedented way. In fact, I will tell you confidently that there are absolutely Republicans that currently are serving that are concerned as well, and they should be concerned that this may backfire on them as they try to create these seats, because there will be new vulnerabilities. And I promise you, I am going to do everything that I can to make sure that Texans know what is at stake and understand that they are trying to basically put their voices on mute, and it is time to raise the volume on their voices.
Okay, so enough of that. So I do want to point out one thing at the very beginning that she says that is really, really wild. We'll hear it again.
Texas is a majority minority state, and they don't feel comfortable having to go and present their...
Okay. I would love to point out that her entire case that she's making here is that because Texas has people of certain color differentials, different demographic makeup, that the Republicans are trying to gerrymander districts so that whites can maintain control or whatever. Representative Wesley Hunt made a phenomenal point on Bill Maher not too long ago that the entire point of his running, again, he points out that his father, who used to have to get meals at the back of the building in Louisiana when his dad was a kid, now has a son who is a member of the United States Congress. And he points out, Wesley Hunt, that he has an incredibly high approval rating among individuals who are white, who are brown, again, that word which means relatively nothing because that's not an ethnic group, and then black individuals here in this country. All favor Wesley Hunt. And he is in no danger of losing his next election. His approval ratings are some of the highest of any House member in Texas. He's not worried about losing his seat no matter what way the districts redistrict. Why? Because Representative Wesley Hunt does not rely on a skin color in order to make progress in an election. Jasmine Crockett is terrified the wrong racial categories might not line up for her to vote. First of all, that's incredibly insulting. But of course, it fits Jasmine Crockett's, classical method of understanding society, that old teachers union style public school attitude, which does bring us back to Randi Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, who is out there also trying to rally the troops to something completely different. Again, this is the wildest thing. Democrats have no unified messaging. They have different individuals running out in front of the crowds and just yelling consistently. Check it out.
That education is a national goal and a national priority. And instead of dismantling education, this has nothing to do with whether local school boards or school districts should run education. We believe they should.
You don't.
But it says this is a national priority. Our students are a national priority.
So in her complaints about the Federal Department of Education going away, we got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Sorry, it's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So right now, the Democrats are trying very, very desperately, and I mean as hard as they can, to rally around some kind of banner somewhere. Randi Weingarten saying, oh, well, we really need to be focused on the Department of Education because kids aren't going to be able to learn, even though the Department of Education has not improved a single education statistic at all for any American student, period. You've got Ayanna Pressley saying it's all about DEI. You've got that other Simone, Latifah Simon. See, I've never heard of her before. She's complaining about her own issues and deals. And there are two things that you really need to understand in this country. Number one, that none of this is going to unite Americans at all. And number two, there are far more interesting things to pay attention to than these ladies in the House of Representatives yelling. I'm sorry, I'm actually in the wrong. There is one more member of the House of Representatives that decided to share with us the importance of her deep political ideological beliefs, because there is one more thing the left is deeply invested in, and this is pro-Palestine. Everything is really about Palestine. And Rashida Tlaib has decided now is the moment to get out there and bring out the big guns. Now, they've protested, they've yelled and protested on the floor of the House. They've worn fancy scarves. They tried that after George Floyd. Remember the Kunta Kinte scarves, when they all did the kneeling
Nancy
thing?
Pelosi rocked it for quite a long time.
Well, now they've worn the pro-Hamas Palestinian scarves, the keffiyehs. They've done about everything they can do until today. What's more powerful than speeches? What's more powerful than marching in the streets and blocking traffic and throwing concrete at police officers' heads? That's right. The power of music, man. And Rashida Tlaib, she's like out here. She's got the spirit of the music in her, man. Check this out.
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
Yeah. Palestinian people, this is all for you. And then she takes a spoon and starts smacking it against the side of, again, for those who are listening and you can't see this is a reason you need to watch the show live on the broadcast over on YouTube or in our TV affiliate partners. Rashida Tlaib has as her bucket, her drum, her bell that she's hitting, one of those like cafeteria buffet serving trays, like the steamer trays that you would put like scalloped potatoes in. Again, just to one more time here for you.
Palestinian people, this is.
And just a metal spoon. Someone pointed out that there is a 0% chance she did not steal that from the U.S. Capitol cafeteria.
All for you.
Maybe it's like an ice scoop or an ice cream. I'm not even sure. It's incredible. And as producer Nick pointed out earlier, amazing that she's hitting the side of the container, not even the bottom, to make like a drum sound. So producer Nick decided this was the time to really break out his editing skills here. And you sent this over to me, and it was probably one of the greatest things I've ever seen, and did in fact remind me of what was it? Was it Holla Back Girl?
Yeah. Going
Palestinian
right back
people,
into it.
this is all for you.
This my shit. All the girls stop your feet like this. Few times you've been around like that, so it's
Get it, girl.
happen like that.
It's good. It's good. I love it. Every time congressmen and women try to get musical, it's just a meme. It's a meme in and of itself. I did think of something from yours truly here that maybe a little answer to the Holla Back Girl.
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
Oh, Med had the same wrong one here. We'll try to get that one again. Here we go.
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
Very nice.
All right. The next one, you say it's from an old Vine. What is this?
It just evolves from here.
Is this like a lady in a gown? Oh, is it the
Never got to sleep.
Never got to sleep? There you go.
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
I didn't get no sleep because of y'all. Y'all not gonna get no sleep because of me.
That's a good one. That's some primo content right there. This one I think you're really gonna like, because I couldn't get out of the musical one. What better than
Palestinian people, this is all for you.
Very nice.
Yeah. Oh wait for it.
Yes.
Okay, this last one I was impressed, because we love Marjorie Taylor Greene and the House and her antics. Yeah, again in the racking the gavel here. She the last time that she started slapping the gavel repeatedly, I put it to call on me, Eric Pride's little Stevie Winwood remix there. I do appreciate your adding this in over that. This is some stellar stuff.
Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized.
Chairwoman, that is not how
Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized. Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized.
I do feel bad for anyone who's like currently seeking through radio stations and happened upon this in the middle of that. Last one though, we had to do this just for y'all. Again, nothing would make this better than a little something from legendary producer Bruce Dickinson.
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Palestine people, this is all for you.
Okay, but if Rashida Tlaib ever starts doing like the belly shirt thing, I'm out. I'm done. I'm resigning right now. I'm not
for it.
No.
I'm hoping that her and Marjorie Taylor Greene will work together sometime.
You get Hank Johnson, with his get some guitar in there, man. I tell you what, we might. And then of course the "Which side are you on?" for the Elon Musk. The Democrats and Marjorie Taylor Greene really might have a future in a new genre of music that you can also use to torture terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. Full circle, man. It's going to be great. Radio crew, we got to send you over to commercial. Be back in just a minute. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. There is one story we meant to cover last night that I didn't get around to because, again, news wouldn't stop breaking. Sorry. In Florida, the police dropped into a local Chuck E. Cheese to make an arrest. And they weren't there to arrest one of the parents that took their kids to the child casino. They weren't there to make an arrest from, one of the cooks in the kitchen. God knows if you've ever seen the pizza coming out of a Chuck E. Cheese kitchen, probably a couple health code violations. Instead, the cops arrested the actual mascot, Chuck E. Cheese. This is down in Florida. Check this out.
Oh, shit!
Sorry, wrong clip there. We'll try that again.
Oh, shit!
There we go.
A rat! There's a rat! There's a motherfucking rat!
First of all,
Charles Entertainment Cheese.
Charles Entertainment Cheese arrested by the Florida police. I do love that they arrest. So again, this is during the day. So theoretically, one would expect there are children in Chuck E. Cheese and the cops go in and they make the arrest, but they lead this individual out of the building.
There's a child watching as he passes
arresting
by.
Chuck E. Cheese. It's not until they get out to the police cruiser that they remove the Chuck E. Cheese mask helmet thing from his face. Incredible. I love it. Also, Winter, thank you very much for the super chat tip there. We're glad you liked the little remixes of Rashida Tlaib's musical ability. Really appreciate that. It is truly fantastic to see them. Again, a kid watched Chuck E. Cheese get arrested. They didn't take him off, go, oh, it's a mascot, we're arresting. Then you could be like, see, he was arrested for impersonating Chuck E. Cheese.
No, Chucky did something.
They actually dragged him out in costume. It like when the Santa Claus gets arrested a bunch at the end of Disney's, like the Santa Claus. Oh man, I love it. Nothing is going to be more entertaining than any arrest in Florida. Truly, it's fantastic. The more that I see arrests out of Florida, the more I am encouraged. All right, we got to go back. We're coming to the end of this commercial break here. We're going to head over to a phenomenal interview. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast. It's good to be with you, and we have got someone fresh back from great international expeditions. That's right. We've got Nick Solheim over from the American Moment. No, we like them a lot. And in Greenland, one might say someone's views could come back a little bit different than when they went, given the controversies earlier. Nick, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fantastic. What on God's green earth would possess you to go visit remote villages in Greenland?
Yeah, I don't want to get into too many specifics of my trip, to protect the identities of the other people I went with. But going to Greenland has long been an interest of mine. I've been writing about, the potential for an acquisition of Greenland since 2018. Been working on it as a policy matter for a long time. And so had the opportunity to go, and I took it. We visited Kangerlussuaq, which is the site of Danish Arctic Command. It was a very small village, about 400 or 500 people. There is at the airport a gift shop, a grocery store across the street, and a hotel. And that's about it. Not a lot else, but it was a very educational trip.
I got to ask, I wonder what the threshold is for a town these days. How big does a town have to be to have a gift shop? It used to be like, you look at a small town and say it has a gas station. Maybe it has like a little general store. The gift shop, was it for the Arctic base, or, just this is a really cool place in general?
I think it's because people don't really end up going to Greenland that frequently. The most recent VIP that actually the attendant at the gift shop told me about was Morgan Freeman had visited 2 weeks prior. So if you're Morgan Freeman and you find yourself in a rural Greenlandic village, you might want to bring back some souvenirs.
That's really funny. I would never have guessed that in a million years. We got to build this gift shop. Like, why do we need it? Well, because Morgan Freeman might show up to the door one day. Okay, so we're talking about foreign policy. We talk about the Trump administration. We talk about the U.S. in the next decade, reframing a lot of how it's previously acted on the global stage, and people start getting real spooked. It's amazing how quickly you can start talking about potential foreign policy angles that everyone starts to get a little bit nervous because of, the last 20 or 30 years. What do you see based on what you guys are looking at in regard not just to the Greenland trip, but some of your more broad studies in general? What's the best approach the U.S. should be taking right now to not just the Greenland situation, but maybe the North Atlantic as a whole?
Yeah, my personal view would be that we've sort of become enslaved to the rules-based international order, and we've sort of lost an imagination for what American foreign policy is, has been, and could be. What I look at, when we're having the conversation about Greenland is, a gigantic territory that is full of vast resources, but also a place that the Danish are not protecting or defending very well, and a place that is generating a lot of interest from our adversaries, particularly the Chinese. And so it is my view that it is in America's best interest to take a serious look at any kind of relationship, regardless of whether or not it's expanded trade or investment opportunities, or an acquisition, or some kind of expanded treaty agreement. I think all options are on the table, and it's worth noting, that President Trump's suggestion that we find some way to acquire Greenland is actually the fourth time in American history that we have attempted to do so. We did in 1868. We explored it following the purchase of Alaska. We attempted to acquire them in 1910 and ended up with the U.S. Virgin Islands instead. And then we attempted to acquire it in 1946 after the conclusion of World War II. So this is far from some newfangled idea, though the president does have many of those, which are great. But this is a storied American interest that we have cared about for over 150 years.
Now, look, we can't talk too much about kind of classical late 1800s, early 1900s American imperialism because my beard starts turning into a Teddy Roosevelt mustache. My glasses become more circular. I start looking for a very specific kind of hat to wear. But I will say this, at least in regard to your exploration. Remember, Nick, on the playground, finders, keepers, a classic innovation of mankind's policy. And we did the finding and the discovering of 2/3 to 75% of Greenland. Robert Peary, of course, who you were referencing, the incredible explorer. There's a lot of really great stuff on his work over at Naval History. Of course, as well, Louise Arner Boyd did a lot of exploration of Greenland and the Arctic. She wrote extensively about all of her scientific explorations, again, mirroring the kind of Lewis and Clark expedition across the American continent. And there really is an element of, just because you stick a flag in this continent, does that mean any land that just happens to be connected to it, you automatically get to lay claim to? Because again, like you've pointed out, the Danish government isn't necessarily, well, I shouldn't even say necessarily, the Danish government is doing jack squat to provide some of the basic care, infrastructure, and essentials to people who are currently paying taxes to the Danish government. It just seems a little bit short-sighted on their part as maybe a territorial conquest, that there might not be another power who's put more into that landmass that might be able to provide something better, not just for the people in Greenland, but also, again, those in the greater region.
Yeah, I would say two different things about that. You know, you alluded to the sort of expansionist foreign policy, during the progressive era. And I would say the big difference between then and now is, you can quibble with the start to the Spanish-American War. You can quibble
to hell with Spain. Sorry, excuse me.
You can quibble with all sorts of, quagmires we ensnared ourselves in. But what I would say is nobody's looking for a war to acquire Greenland. This is, purely a diplomatic problem with a diplomatic solution. And
for one, there are way fewer San Juan hills to ride the Rough Riders up in Greenland. I mean, there's a different kind of mountainous territory in some parts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then, the second thing that I would say that is very interesting here is that, to your point, the Danish are not, by any means doing a good job defending Greenland. I mean, they have, one destroyer, that occasionally patrols the coast. And then,
rivaling the Cambodian Navy, are we?
Exactly. And then they have a unit, which I actually think is pretty cool. And I think we should, definitely keep if it becomes a U.S. territory, called the Sirius Patrol. And it's basically like 20 guys who ride around on dog sleds and carry Mausers for the polar bears. And I was talking to, one of these gentlemen while I was in Kangerlussuaq, and what I discovered is they're able to cover the entire coast of Greenland about once every 4 years. It takes 4 years for them to patrol the entire coast, and so it's not really being adequately defended in any particular way. The reason that the Sirius Patrol was started in the first place was because during World War II, the Germans put weather stations on the eastern coast of Greenland to discover what the weather was going to be like in the Channel for a British invasion. It's not that hard to imagine, our adversaries putting listening devices in Greenland or radar detection systems that could spy
Nick, we've
on the
talked
United
about
States.
this before, the expansion of Chinese devices on these small, minuscule reefs and islands, with China dumping sand into the South China Sea to try to expand its international territory. The Chinese are experts at going to some forlorn remote place, sticking a box there without anyone noticing it. And I'm going to be honest here. I love kind of native integration into patrolling. And I'm sure the Sirius Patrol is incredibly impressive in how they know the land and how they understand it and what they're able to look for. But Greenland needs a little bit more than kind of a once over the coast every 4 years kind of a situation to keep the Chinese at bay. Now, of course, that's not the only thing. We're obviously doing a ton to protect that particular island as well. But in the next couple of years, I agree with you. There's this adhesion to the UN or really, I should say, submission to this UN foreign policy quagmire of, well, you have to follow the legislative rules of maritime procedure. I mean, it doesn't fit the needs of the American people. It doesn't fit the needs of the international community and how supposedly wonderful it is. And if we don't start playing by the rules to win, then someone else is going to. Other countries are doing so. And again, it is against the best interests of Americans and the safety of those Americans in foreign places, and not to mention our allies and our interests, to suggest that, well, someone else is going to handle it because the Danish really don't want to give up the one time they discovered a landmass that was bigger than their little northward jutting peninsula in Europe. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be really, really combative here. It's just the coffee hasn't sunk all the way in yet.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing that I would say that's interesting is I think there are certainly aligned purposes here between the United States and the Greenlanders. I think it's worth remembering that the native population in Greenland is much more closely related to indigenous populations that we have in Canada and in the United States than they are to anybody in Europe. And what's more, the Greenlanders and the Danes, they hate each other. Denmark.
No one knows this. No one talks about, there are polls and articles about this all the time. No one talks about how much the people in Greenland despise the Danes.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that was confirmed by a lot of the conversations that I had when I was in Greenland. And the thing that's, most polarizing to people in Greenland, when you have conversations with them about this is, the Danish always defend themselves and say, hey, we give you this big block grant for your government to spend. It's like $560 million a year. We invest in you plenty. But the problem is there's no actual investment in the economy. That's all like public spending that's at the discretion of the Greenlandic government. Danish companies don't invest in Greenland. They don't create jobs in Greenland. And when Greenlanders go to study in, say, Denmark, they're treated with contempt. There's no, real kindred spirit relationship being a part of the Danish realm that's going on, between this country and its territory. And having, conversations with a lot of people there, like if you look at the elections a couple months ago, the number 2 vote getter, they have 6 major political parties for a population of 57,000 people, which is another story. But the second highest vote getter was the only party that desires closer relationships with North America than they do with Europe. And you know what they did when they formed the coalition government? All 5 parties, left, right, and center, formed a coalition government against the party that desired closer relations with North America. And so I think it's very obvious that there are serious forces at play here, and the Danish do not want to let this go. But I think there's no doubt about the fact that they do not have a positive relationship, and neither of their needs are being met.
And so you start talking about Danish companies, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. There's that one of the big international shipping companies is based out of Denmark. One of the biggest one, Maersk. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes. I remember a couple of years ago them turning down, again, the southern point of Greenland. One might say a large shipping hub and operation in the North Atlantic might be incredibly advantageous. And I believe, and I could be wrong here, so I'll triple check this, but I believe that Maersk has repeatedly turned down opportunities to invest and build essentially very accelerated trading infrastructure in the North Atlantic along Greenland. And that's a Danish company. So it's not just blowing smoke when we're talking about the abandonment of Greenland. I can think of a lot of American companies that would love to have kind of a forward base of operations in the North Atlantic and in the halfway point that Greenland often serves. I see that we're running a little bit shorter on time here, but I did want to ask you just kind of as a final question here. The work that you're doing as you travel around the world, also, you're a family man. I love seeing the posts that are often coming out. I think that you're a phenomenal husband and a father. When you travel internationally like this, what are your thoughts regarding how American policy is kind of shaping the American family as well? Do you see kind of family in other nations that you're traveling to that are suffering kind of the same ills that Americans are, or things a little bit different? Just as a husband and a dad, what have trips to Greenland and other places kind of shaped in that framework?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, Tony, I actually don't go a lot of other places internationally. But, I'll tell you this, in Greenland, it was actually the time of year that I was there, just a few short weeks ago. It is, north of the Arctic Circle, 23 hours of daylight. And one thing that I distinctly remember in my hotel room, which was, again, inside the airport, was I had my window open. I like to sleep with it cold in my room. My wife knows this, but I had my window open, and the amount of children that were riding their bikes outside of my window, and there was a family who had a house across the street from the airport with a trampoline, and they had 5 or 6 kids. I'm guessing, many of them were siblings, jumping up and down. And I think one thing we really focus here in the United States on progress, on GDP, on line going up, and
line go up means graph good. Yes,
exactly. And talking to some of these people, and sharing meals with them, and I was there for a short 24-hour period, but talking with people who aren't spending their life on the internet, aren't ordering every single thing in their life off of Amazon, because there's not really a great way to get Amazon packages, north of the Arctic Circle in Greenland. They seemed much more centered, happy, and family oriented in some cases than we are. And I know to some conservatives who are listening, they may think that's almost traitorous to say something like that another, nation may have some sort of good understanding of what it means to have a family life. But I would remind, people listening or watching this, that conservatism has to mean something. And if you're not, conserving the way that your parents raised you, that your grandparents raised your parents, and the way, that you hope to raise your children in the same way, I would argue that you're not really conserving anything at all. And so it was very heartening to see a lot of happy families who spent good time together, and kids playing outside in the midnight sun.
I really, really appreciate that take on it. No, I don't think that our audience will find that particularly traitorous. I think they're the ones who hope that America returns to a lot of that, fostering that kind of movement for the American family. Nick Solheim, again, phenomenal to have you on as always. Really appreciate the work that you guys do at American Moment. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
All right, we'll do just a little bit of bonus tonus this evening. So maybe not a ton. My voice is a little bit rough after this particular week, but just for y'all. So first of all, I do want to say thank you to Winter, to Scrap Iron, to Steel Toad over on the YouTube live streams for their incredibly kind super chats.
Really as well.
Oh, I'll get there in just a second. Don't you worry. Steel Toad, 3 different super chats. Very, very kind. Haas MH, who donated a whopping $50. Incredibly kind of you. We don't really try to advertise anything specifically on the show regarding joining memberships or anything like that. That's just a very, very kind thing. So really do appreciate the kindness. Not something you have to do. Steel Toad did say it best in one of his super chats. The UN is the most anti-Western organization on the planet, and we fund it. Correct. The UN building should be raised, and we should not only defund the UN, we should then require reparations from it, because it is a garbage place full of garbage diplomats and individuals. So with those very cheery thoughts out of the way, I'm going to move on to just a little bit of mail time, because you guys have sent in some phenomenally awful and wonderful questions this week, and I wanted to get to a few of them. So the first one, since we're talking about foreign policy here, from David. He says, Tony, look, I'm not an isolationist, but do you think it would be best to get out of the over 600-year Russo-Ukraine war, longest running war in history? Russians call it a particular blood feud. So I do think that it is important to define specifically where we want to get out of Ukraine at. We can't just completely pull out right now in the way that one would just say, I'm out of here, losers. It doesn't quite work in that way, as much as I wish it did. There does need to be a line drawn for Putin. Obama's biggest foreign policy failure, Biden's biggest foreign policy failure, was drawing lines in the sand. Both of them. They would say, don't you dare cross this line, dictator, scary guy. And then thinking that Obama and Biden were weaklings and, being right, they would cross the line and the U.S. would draw a new super tough guy line in the sand. No. In order to do the whole Teddy Rooseveltian foreign policy, which works, which you may have heard me talking about, you do have to carry the big stick. The idea that Putin is going to drop nukes at the drop of a hat, no. Putin does not have any desire to be radioactive glass, which is what would happen if they dropped a nuke in Eastern Europe, given that weather moves from east to west in the Northern Hemisphere. No, not likely. I do think that you don't have to prop up Ukraine, but there are ways to stand up to the kind of Putin Russian imperialism. As to it being a 600-year blood feud, no. That's again, every single crew that does kind of a that's my land kind of theory on things, they always do it's a really long, complex cultural war. No, it's just like any other war. I want your land. So moving on from that. This is from Lucy. She says, can Obama be charged in a military court for his crime? No. The reason that Obama cannot be charged in a military court for his crime is that there is no definitive evidence that Obama acted on behalf of a foreign military power. If Obama had acted on behalf of a foreign military power, you could make a case for a court-martial. But Obama, once you are no longer the president and you are no longer the commander-in-chief, you are no longer in active military service. I mean, I guess you could be. We've never seen a situation like that before. I know that Kennedy still referred to Eisenhower after his time as president as the general, but that was not even an honorary military rank at that point. He was retired. No, the best that Obama could be prosecuted would be in not in a military trial, but in a federal case. And the Supreme Court, as Trump pointed out rather correctly earlier today, it's very likely that Obama is given the same kind of presidential immunity protection that Trump enjoys from that Supreme Court ruling. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, not so much. Moving on. From Miss Hood's School Bus Life. All right. Asks, why is it that the Democrats have no one to speak for them? It's like they cannot find someone capable or educated in public speaking. Well, that's because the Democrats aren't really fighting for an ideology at this point. This is why AOC is the most likely to be the next nominee for president. She's really the only candidate who's fighting for an ideology that actually has substance to it. Now, it's bad substance. It's rotten all the way through. Socialism sucks. But that's still something that governs her. So she can set aside coalition building, DEI coalition nonsense in order to focus on the ideology, which is why she and Bernie Sanders have been going around the country saying it's not you versus us, it's us versus the rich. Please ignore my many mansions and the private jet flying and get me my pudding. So aside from that, what do the Democrats have? Well, they've been running on, look at my skin color. Look at who I'm interested in sleeping with. And look at my gender. And also, free Palestine for the last however many years. There's nothing to that outside of just cheering on your own demographic group. And as any wine mom watching Sex in the City will tell you, outside of your friend group, nobody really cares. So you really need something beyond that. And that's what we showed kind of on the show this evening. They can trot out whomever they want to say Trump is coming after insert group here. But Trump really isn't. It's kind of hard to say that Trump's going after the gay guys when the guy Trump is praising the most is Scott Bessent. It's kind of hard to say that Trump is going after the black guys when Trump is enacting specific policies that are very popular with members of the black community and then like touring around with Tim Scott places. It's hard to say that Trump is going after he's going after the Palestinian or whatever community when Trump has done more to quote unquote restrain certain Israeli policy in the Middle East than Biden did. It's really weird to make certain cases that he's coming for you when he's not. And you're seeing the pro-Mexican national members of Congress or pro-illegal immigrant members of Congress say, he's coming after Hispanics right now, and it's going to go the same way. It's really not working, but that's why they can't really build some sort of forward coalition. I do want to mention this. Someone sent this over, and I think this is very, very accurate. David McIntosh, who you may remember was on recently, good friend of the show, stellar guy. He also has posted another of the Rashida Tlaib drummer sequences. Incredible. So thanks to David McIntosh for sending this one over. Here, we do have this one ready for you guys.
Palestine people, this is all for you.
I love it. 10 out of 10. I hope this is going to be a meme that sticks around for a while.
Oh, I would hope so.
I've actually got a few more ideas in mind. Anywho, moving on. We'll
keep it alive if nobody else does.
Yeah, we'll keep you guys moving along on this one. So this next question, I really do appreciate here. Do you believe, this is from Renata Earls. My question that always seems to be avoided. What about nuclear waste from clean power plants? Because I'm a very big fan of advancing nuclear energy. So nuclear waste that is produced is not toxic green barrels of ooze. That's not a thing. And I mean it at all. It's not a thing. nuclear power plants do in fact produce a small amount of waste. It's like cooked blackish gray dust, and it comes in several forms. The amount of nuclear waste that nuclear power plants produce is really, really small. I mean, like, for a nuclear power plant the size of the 3 Mile Island facility, what it produces a year would not fill a Nike shoebox. Now, the question then is, what do you do with it? In some reactor cases, the half-life makes it usable, or in some different other kinds of power plants. And sometimes the half-life is short enough that it can be moved again in like 5 or 10 years, 12 years maybe in some reactors.
Yeah, depending on what the actual waste itself is, it actually has secondary applications.
You can use it in all kinds of ways. Now, if the entire United States were powered by the most inefficient kind of nuclear reactors, how much nuclear waste would be produced annually? Not enough to fill up your local water tower. Now, the United States is a really, really big place. If all of that nuclear waste was assembled, quite honest, one of the best ideas has been to just launch it into space in a direction you'd never see it again. If you really had to compress it and just slingshot that crap, you could. Again, there's a ton of things you can do with it. There are ways to accelerate the half-life of radioactive material. We're actually studying that right now. But the idea that it's really dangerous and it's Chernobyl all over again. No, some hippie who can't read told you that.
That's one of the options. And then one of my more favorable options that I'm a big proponent of is just bury the actual nuclear power station itself underground, so that once it's done, it'll just sit there and nobody will ever have to touch it again.
That is true. That's true. The facilities themselves are not as radioactive. Again, all human power plant construction is just boiling water with hot rocks. All of it. From coal to, hydroelectric is not necessarily done that way, but even solar in a lot of ways involves boiling water in some solar facilities out west. So when it comes to power, humans and boiling water with hot rocks, it's kind of our thing. Whether that's done with nuclear energy or coal, or many biodegradable and fancy renewable kinds of energy that, for example, some ethanol plants have done. So, last question that I am quite fond of. This is from a guy named Chakula8642. He says, "You look like JD Vance." Now, to the comment section. Guys, I am told this all the ding dong dang day. All day I am told that I look like JD Vance. It doesn't offend me. I am told we are both very aware of this comparison. Not that it's hard to find a white guy from the Midwest with likely a fair amount, I'd say, on his part of Native American blood. I don't know if he's tribal or not, but with the high cheekbones that make the beard look a certain way. Shout out to Elizabeth Warren. We all do look the same. And look, whether it's Matt Walsh or yours truly, look, we all do, in fact, a little bit look like JD Vance. This is where the comment takes a turn for the better. He says, "Except you're more girly, like even your voice is girly, man." All right. I've never really measured my voice next to Vance's, like side by side, but all right, I could guess be a little bit higher. And then he says, "Man up, dude." Then he loses it and goes, "I can't listen to you anymore. Quote, Tony," end quote. And then in parentheses, still in all caps, "Don't you mean Anthony?" He actually spells mean M-R-A-N. So maybe Imran Anthony. I don't know. Yes, my real name is Anthony. I do go by Tony, as I've gone my entire life. I don't know what news you're breaking. I could go by Anthony, I guess, which is Latin for praiseworthy, just in case you were wondering. But aside from that, I do a lot of accents and voices and crappy impressions on the show because I did a little bit of voice acting for a while. We are working on a small project that does involve that voice acting. Won't go into projects and things like that, but when I am mocking those on the left, I will pull out just a series of accents to mock some of the soy beta guys, or like the beta goofballs, or like the Karens, and how much they like really care, because, you know, flavor the voice. For those who are listening on the podcast, a little bit of variety. So a little bit of spice. A little bit of spice. So those things said, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope that it is quiet. We are not allowing producer Nick to say anything about his predictions on news breaking. So if you would consider heading over to the YouTube page, liking the video, a little subscription would be wonderful. Other than that, we do have some exclusive podcast interviews that are coming out over the weekend that are only going to be found on the podcast side of things, unless you are a member of the YouTube page. So down in the description, we'll have a link over to the podcasts. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.